Hey everyone, welcome to Restaurant Tech Trends, where we explore restaurant technology trends with some of the industry's biggest movers and shakers in a rapid fire short interview format. This podcast is produced by Incept AI. Incept AI takes restaurant orders over the phone and in noisy drive-thrus with friendliness and precision. Learn more at incept.ai. Today, I am joined by Brandon Barton, CEO of Byte. Brandon has been involved in restaurant technology for 20 years now. He's a self-proclaimed elder statesman in the space. Byte has been one of the most visible players in restaurant kiosks as well over the last several years, working with brands across QSR and fast casual as operators rethink labor, throughput, and the role of in-store digital ordering. And as kiosks move from being a nice to have to a mission critical infrastructure, the questions in the industry are changing around ROI, menu strategy, guest behavior, and how kiosks fit alongside things like voice AI, mobile, and the drive-thru. Brandon has had a front row seat to that evolution, and today we're going to dig into what's working with kiosks and the future of this channel. Brandon, welcome to the show.
Justin, thanks so much for having me. Pleasure to be here.
I'm excited to have you on. I'm looking forward to learning a bit more about Byte, and let's go ahead and start there.
Sure.
Can you give us the quick overview of Byte? You know, kiosks, it's a booming space, it's competitive. What is it that really makes Byte stand out in this rapidly evolving segment of the industry?
Yeah, Byte. When I started at Byte, and I say I started at because I did join the two founders. The thing that impressed me most about what we were doing was kiosks were just starting out. McDonald's and Shake Shack were both using kiosks, and they had both built their own. So did Panera, built their own as well. And what Stas and Jeff and I realized was everybody else in the middle, between Shake Shack at that time, which had 100 stores, and McDonald's, which was the largest restaurant group in America, was going to need kiosks. And what impressed me about what they had built was that it already at that point, 2017, 2018, was built with AI as the basis for the product. We called it machine learning back then because nobody knew what AI was. But the personalization, the whole story of Byte was built out of the idea that we would go to fast casual restaurants and people wouldn't recognize us. I went to the same, let's just call it breakfast concept that was in between the Subway and where I worked every single day when I worked at Resi for, I don't know, probably 3 straight years. And only once was I recognized with a smile and like a, hey, good to see you again. Okay. And so initially, one of the big parts of Byte was the fact that we had facial recognition built in. We still do. I think it's a little downplayed, and the whole biometrics is actually probably coming back. But moreover, personalization of things that I have ordered in the past and making suggestions to me was all the AI that was built into the product. Still what differentiates us today. We feel we have the best algorithm for personalization. We make the guest feel best. This is something that's lost in the world of digital is, oh, how do I make sure they have less this and less that or more this? How does the guest feel when they walk out of that experience? And so we are obsessed with the guest. I worked for an operator that everyone knows, Danny Meyer, who's obsessed with hospitality. We put that into the product. And so between the personalization through the AI algorithm and the guest obsession that we have, we feel that's what differentiates our product when it comes to kiosk. And I'd also state that we are kiosk experts. This is the thing. This is 98% of our business is kiosks. And it's all we care about is this digital in-store experience, not apps, not this, not that. It's just kiosk.
Well, I want to dive into that a little bit deeper, especially on the AI and the personalization piece, because there are some people in the industry, even today, that consider kiosks to be an anti-hospitality type of technology. And you talked about facial recognition and all of the depersonalization. How do you really transform this experience of interacting with a kiosk to be something that's friendly and approachable, that guests like to interact with, and not something that just like creeps them out or makes them feel like, hey, this brand is just trying to shove a machine in front of me when I want to talk to a person?
Yeah. Well, let's first start with our recommendation for most brands is to have cashiers and kiosks. Okay. give choice. And when people have choice, you'll see close to 50% of people will choose to use the kiosk. There's a William Blair survey that comes out every quarter where that number keeps creeping up on the number of the percentage of people who say they prefer using kiosk. The last number I saw was in the high 70s, 76% or something like that. So, yet there are going to be people who are like, man, I don't want to use a kiosk today, or for whatever reason. And I think and this is the funny part, it's the same guest. If I'm by myself and I'm listening to a podcast, I want to walk in and use a kiosk and not talk to anybody. I'm listening to the latest episode of Restaurant Tech Trends. Why do I need to be interrupted? Okay. But if I'm maybe with my kids and like we're deliberating what we need and we need to figure out if something has gluten in it because there's a gluten allergy or whatever, maybe I'll go over and talk to a cashier. Both things can be true. Let guests decide. And I know that through the time that we've had Byte, the trend has only been up and to the right with regards to guests wanting to use self-assisted ordering, self-assisted checkout, and so forth. So I'd challenge anybody who thinks that the hospitality is not there. It reminds me of like these silly things where restaurateurs want to impart hospitality the way they want to impart it rather than listening to guests and understanding what they want. Okay. But even so, that doesn't mean that every kiosk is the same. Just because something's a touchscreen and allows you to order doesn't mean it's a good experience. And so this is where it matters to us to optimize what is a kiosk UX. And so, I always suggest to people that kiosks are a third thing. If you were to order something online via your computer, you're going to be typing with your fingers on a keyboard. If you're ordering something online on your phone, you're using your thumbs. Well, on a kiosk, you typically are going to use your pointer finger on your strong hand, usually your right hand. And just thinking of that context alone means you have to have a UI that's specified for kiosks in a way that understands that that's, you're using your pointer finger, you're using one finger. You can't be left and right side like you can with your thumbs. And so just a simple example of the depth that we go to understand how to make this special, not to mention the software itself. And I know we'll talk about it a little bit later, but it could be fun. It's a screen. You could do whatever you want. You could have cartoons. You could have things running around. You could have circles. You could have question marks all through it. You could have emojis. Like, it can be fun. So I think that's a little bit of what we go towards.
I do definitely want to make sure we spend a bit of time and a little bit talking about the future interfaces on kiosks. But there is something, of course, I have to ask because we're in the voice AI space. And sometimes we get asked, hey, what about voice AI on kiosks? And I'm just going to be honest with you. My opinion on this is I'm really not sold on it. I think people, when they go to the kiosk, they are expecting to interact with this screen using their dominant hand, index finger, using the UI that's like specially designed for kiosks and not with their voice. I'm sure you hear about this too. Maybe you're even doing it right now. What do you think about the intersection of voice AI and kiosks?
Yeah,
is it really there, or just like a phantom, wish that some people have that, maybe some time off in the future will be everywhere?
Look, my opinion's close to yours. But honestly, your opinion, my opinion doesn't matter. There's two opinions that do. What do the brands want, and what does the guest want? Okay, and so far, I haven't seen any people picketing restaurants because they don't have voice AI on kiosks so far. I don't know if, I haven't checked the news today. Okay. And frankly, I haven't heard restaurateurs asking for it as well. And I haven't heard brands asking for it. Here's what I would deduce from the fact that doesn't exist yet. One, inside of restaurants is noisy. Good voice AI, and you tell me, you're the expert, starts with good microphones. Making sure you're hearing the right person, the right voice, might even be as high as like directional microphones and things like that. That's expensive technology. The second part, as you're also alluding to, is this almost like anonymity in terms of what you're ordering, right? Like the privacy of it. The point of potentially ordering off a kiosk is not having to say, I would like the double cheeseburger with extra cheese. Give me 2 sauce on the side. I'd love a barbecue sauce. I need double fries with double protein. and like you're saying that out loud, and the person next to you is looking at you like maybe you shouldn't do that. No, that the point is you can have privacy in terms of what you're ordering, and so maybe that interaction is just you touching a screen rather than you broadcasting to the entire restaurant that that's the case. Either way, we haven't had people asking for it, and so while we are ready to accept the whatever becomes the best voice AI there is, Incept, we're ready, but at the same time, we don't hear it as a cry from customers or brands yet.
Yeah, we definitely don't hear it as a cry from customers. There are a few brands that have been interested in it, but I wouldn't say they're, dying to get it right away or anything like that. Let's double click a little bit on privacy. I had Leon from Dave's Hot Chicken on here a while back, and he was talking about a kiosk rollout that they were running. And he gave me a very similar example to what you just shared, which is, people sometimes can be embarrassed to talk to a cashier about maybe getting like some, a triple whopper or something like that, or, extra mayonnaise or something on a sandwich. Is that like a real thing? Do you see that when people order with kiosks, checks actually are higher because people are less afraid to articulate maybe some of their less healthy dining options when they're just tapping on a screen?
Absolutely. I'm sure that that's part of it. Our check average is typically 20% higher than the in-store average check. And we have the industry leading average check higher than what is going on over at Leon's and Dave's. Leon's a good buddy. So shout out to you, buddy. Um, yeah, and look, I think part of it is the freedom for people to get whatever they want without having to fear any shame or judgment. I think also it's easier to click and buy things than it is to say things. Look, when the
Yeah.
old line of "Do you want fries with that?" is one moment where you get to upsell somebody. If you go to the movie theater, they say, "Do you want to do you want your popcorn to be an extra large?" You can't say that after every item that somebody orders. And so, but the kiosk can. And the kiosk can sit there and present options to you, like, do you want to add extra sauce? Do you want to add extra cheese? Would you like to add double your protein? All those things. The kiosk can do that without having to ask and interrupt your ordering flow. And so, inherently, if you are making the right suggestions to the people at the right time with things like Bite Lift, our algorithm, you will actually see a much greater increase in average check. And I think what's most important, Justin, is there is a limit to this. You don't want somebody who expected to come in and spend $25 for 2 to 3 people to spend 40. Okay. And so there is a really important barrier that you cannot cross where the value is going to start to be degraded in the experience. And so we understand that wholeheartedly because we have the most brands in the country that are working with our kiosks.
Okay. Well, I think this is a good segue into maybe some of the reasons why kiosk rollouts or pilots don't always go according to expectations. So you gave one example right here of excessive upselling. And the reason I'm smiling at this, by the way, is because we have a similar thing in the voice AI space. There are brands that want after every item that upsell added, and
Yep.
it can sometimes be a challenge to have those discussions. So that could be one reason, maybe too heavy upselling. Like, what are some other reasons that you've seen kiosk pilots or rollouts peter out or just not meet expectations? And what do you do to try to counter that?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think there are two major things. One, probably the most important one, is that the brand doesn't adopt kiosk correctly. Okay. And so,
Okay.
what does that actually mean? Um, if you don't have proper conversations with your team and your staff and adjust your steps of service to include kiosk as a major component of it, it will fail. Imagine if you had a restaurant and then, operated it for years and then threw a drive-through in and didn't tell anybody that you were throwing a drive-through in. How would that go? And so we mitigate that because we have an entire launch team that does the training. We do the manual for you. We incorporate the restaurant's materials into the manual that we have or that we create for them that now incorporates kiosk as a part of steps of service. I know this because I ran restaurants. And, the idea that you could just put a piece of technology in is not it. It's all the change management that goes along with it. So restaurants that are not willing to help with that change management with their team are going to fail at any technology, never mind kiosks. Other than that, there are some brands that I would consider that kiosk is not a good fit. We have actually found, funny enough, that there are some brands that the proper guest experience, or the most ideal guest experience, is for people to go look at the food before they purchase it. I'll give you an
Mhm.
example. Barbecue restaurants. If you've ever been to Austin, or if you've ever been, to North Carolina, you want to go over and watch them cut the meat that you're that you're ordering, and that's a part of some fast casual QSR experiences where ordering off a screen doesn't do that, right? It's not going to show you the exact thing that you're getting. Do I want a little bit of this? Do I want to cut from the end, or do I want to cut from the middle? So there are certain examples of this where kiosk just doesn't make sense. But it's something that we've found over the years, and it's few, but I think that's still true. Ultimately, for me and for Byte, what we care most about is that we can push this industry forward. It's not making sure
Mhm.
that every restaurant has a kiosk, and if they don't fit, they don't fit.
Yeah. All right. Well, again, we're gonna spend a bit more time talking about the future, but I want to dive first into one of your customers, Big Chicken. So I was reading a little bit about some things that you guys did with their secret menu.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about what that is?
Yeah, so look, I had a great experience living on the West Coast for a little bit, and I was introduced to this wonderful brand, In and Out. And anybody who's anybody, this is back in the day. Now everybody knows about it. But if you didn't know what Animal Style was, you just were like, it's the original. If you know, you know, right? And
Yeah.
and it's just the coolest thing. And we spend so much of our time at Byte thinking about how do we take things that exist in the real world and make them digital. And that was one of those things that we came up with and said, we should be able to have a secret menu. And that menu should be, whether it's a celebrity that's associated to the restaurant, or it's the top instructor at the yoga class next to the juice, the juice concept. What is their smoothie, right? Or you see this in full service where you sometimes have cocktails that are named after the regulars. All of this stuff, right? It could be secret, it could be there. And so we approached Big Chicken with this because there's no bigger celebrity to me than Shaquille O'Neal, and I mean that physically as well as
True.
his persona, right? And they were Josh and the team and Perry were so great. Said this is a great idea. Got this together. We got Shaq. Pepsi had actually come in and done some video. So we had GIFs of Shaq doing a whole bunch of things, and so we just infused Shaq into the kiosk. And one of those things was the secret menu, where the way Shaq and Lucille and his family, Lucille's his mother, the way they love their Big Chicken meals, right? So a little extra sauce here, a Sprite here, whatever, and it was just really cool to be able to do that. We've done it a couple other times. We've launched a secret menu with Portillo's and a couple other brands as well. But again,
Right.
how do you take these unique things that exist in the real world and then put them into the kiosk? And you do it with class and hospitality.
Yeah. I love that story, and I want to hear more about the Portillo's example too. But my brain is instantly going to POS providers with the secret menus and how you get the special items on, and how you manage that with the kiosks. And I think we're in maybe a bit of a similar space to you guys. We're an ordering channel, and so we have the great fortune of working with many different point of sale providers. Are there any in particular in the industry that you want to shout out as being particularly easy to work with? And are there any where you might want to call out they could up their game a little bit?
Yeah, the call out should probably go to our CTO Stas, who has created an incredible system that it doesn't matter if the point of sale is a great point of sale, a bad point of sale, the API is good or bad. That we ingest the information and can translate it into the Byte backend all the same across, and it's not just point of sales, right? It's going on the rails of Olo or Lunchbox or DeliverAct or Otter too, right? Those are all quote unquote point of sales in a way. Look, who does what bad and good, that changes by the minute. It's really interesting. On my podcast, The Simmer, Kristen and I often talk about the POS wars that are happening right now, and It's interesting to watch as older brands are being renewed, and some of the newer upcomers are taking market share, and
Yeah.
it's fun to be on the fly on the wall, not in that competition, but we play neutral with everybody, and
Yeah.
I've enjoyed a lot of the friendships and partnerships that we've made over the years with those with the POS, the online ordering providers, and so forth.
Yeah. That's a very diplomatic response, and obviously
It's the
the
truth.
same.
You know
We've
what
got
though? You know what, Just it's the truth though, because they all have hair on them in some way or
yeah,
another, and it's like their function is not to be rails for you or I. I it's like their function is to be the core system within the restaurant.
yeah, for sure. I am curious, what do you think about what the guys over at Toast are doing? They've definitely been making a lot of inroads, I think, mid market and enterprise. I've been really impressed with what I've seen over there.
Yeah, I mean, I
Just
think this has been a long time coming. I mean, it was a point at which there was a layoff in 20 or 21 where a bunch of the enterprise team went away, and then they've come back.
Mhm.
I think it's smart that they've been flexible. I would say flexible, not agnostic, but flexible on the idea of payment when they've come up market. Look, this is one of those battles. You got Toast, you got NCR, you got Q, you got PAR, right? They're all fighting. You got Square, who's trying to come back into the enterprise. They're all trying to fight for the same customers, and some of the players have been taken off the board, like a Revel, right? Like they've gone away, so it created a void. It's interesting. I
Oh, I
appreciate
don't know that they've gone away.
I appreciate Kelly and the team. Revel has not gone away. Well, SkyTab.
Well, the shift four, and you could say, you could make the argument people go to shift four and then they go away. But
Well, no, the product itself is they're no longer supporting. I don't know if this is breaking news, but they're not trying to continue to have people use Revel. They're trying to move people over to Shift Four to
yeah.
SkyTab. Yeah, so Revel
Yeah.
as a brand is gone. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, let's get off the subject of POSs. We could talk about this for an
I think,
hour if we wanted
or
to.
if you've fallen asleep during that segment, wake up again.
Well, we're going to talk about the future of kiosks, right?
There you
So
go.
I sort of lumped in the voice AI thing a little bit earlier on. You were talking about different types of things you can do with kiosk interfaces. Where do you see this space going, say 5 years, 10 years from now? Are kiosks going to look the same? Are people going to be interacting with like robots? Are there going to be like, avatars that are on the kiosks? Where do you see it going?
Yeah. I'll start with saying something I hope is not where it goes. I've seen kiosks that have been put out there where you're talking to somebody who's probably in a country where you can pay them a lot less money, and all of a sudden you have American work in this case, or that's taken over by somebody in a different country and probably underpaid, and not familiar with the brand and that experience. I hope that's not what I hope this isn't just a FaceTime call with a cashier that's several thousand miles away. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I do think kiosks are going to be a persistent part of the industry, the same way that drive-through is. Um, I don't I don't believe that guests will ever 100% order ahead, and which
I
invalidates the
agree.
argument that oh, we're all just going to do this by the phone. I love when people tell me they have a kiosk in their pocket, and I'm like, do you have any spontaneity in your life? Have you ever walked past a restaurant and wanted to go into it? Um, because I have, and then you have a choice once you're in this restaurant that you've never been to and you didn't order ahead. You have a choice. Do you want to talk to somebody about it, or do you not? And I think there are
Yeah.
so many different ways that you can impart sometimes better hospitality via a kiosk, be more informative via a kiosk than you can with somebody. And I want people to have both choices. Nobody forces
Yes.
you. There are some concepts that are drive-through only, fine. But for the most part, the industry doesn't force you when you drive into the parking lot. You have to go through the drive-through. That's the only way we're going to serve you. No, it's an option. Or you can park and go inside. Or you can order ahead. Or you can order off a kiosk. It's just another channel.
Yeah. I totally agree
Yeah.
with your perspective, by the way, 100%. And as you were saying that, I was thinking to a post that Savneet over at Par made the other day, not about kiosks, but about voice AI being everywhere and like the drive through is going to go away. It's just going to be a pickup window. And it's like, no, it's convenient. People want to order right when they're there. People are spontaneous. Plus, our industry, let's be honest, it just moves a little bit slow. So
Sure.
maybe sometime way off in the future, but I don't see that for drive through. I definitely don't see that for kiosk either.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, we are about out of time here, Brandon. So before we go, we do a little thing here on this podcast called Rapid Fire Questions. So
Uh-oh.
for everyone that is still watching or listening to Brandon and I chat right now, Brandon has no idea what these questions are that I'm about to ask him. I have not shared them in advance. The rules of engagement, Brandon, are try to answer each one of these questions with one word if you can, one sentence if you can't. Are you ready?
Okay, sure.
Don't worry, I'm not going to trip you up too
One
bad here.
word.
One word if you can, one sentence if you can't. Your favorite guilty fast food pleasure.
Big check.
What is one feature operators ask for with kiosks that sounds good but rarely works?
Upsell.
Interesting. That's very interesting. I wasn't expecting that one. What is the most underestimated deployment challenge?
People.
Yeah, okay. Think about kiosks. Hardware innovation or software innovation? Where's the real moat?
Software.
Right. And last, well, we'll do two more. What is the biggest misconception operators still have about kiosks?
Uh, I'll do a sentence that guests don't want them. Get every guest wants a kiosk option.
Right. And last one, what is one thing that you would ban from kiosk UI design forever if you could?
Pop-ups.
Pop-ups. Well, gosh, yeah, that is a good one. Who likes pop-ups
Well,
anyway?
that's when I said upsell, that's what I mean is they all want something that pops up to upsell, pop up, pop up, pop up, pop up, and it's just like internet from the freaking 90s. No.
Okay, so let's real quick before we wrap. What is the right way to do it? So you add, let's say, a burger to your cart, and you want to do extra meat, or you want to add cheese or
So
something. Is it
straightforward.
a
Just give people you're never talking about a 3.5-inch screen from the phone. You're talking about a 15, 22-inch screen. There's plenty of space to give people options. Give it to them. Give it to them on the sidebar. Give it to them on the bottom. Give them options. You don't need to stop them in their tracks and make them close something to get to the next screen.
got it? Makes sense. Well, Brandon, I want to thank you for joining me here today. Really appreciate your time. This was enlightening.
Thanks, man.
Glad this is the longest we've ever sat down and chatted as well.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
everyone, Brandon Barton, CEO of Byte. Thanks, Brandon.
Cheers.